Okay, this should be interesting. Need to get a haircut. Um, Wanted to try something new and different today. Um, I think I there's been a lot of buzz around YOLO code, well, or about vibe coding. That's I think is the ideology that has been getting a lot of like movement over the last couple of months or weeks in that sense, which is the idea of leveraging AI to build applications relatively really quickly, um, where instead of you going through that step-by-step approach of very defined hand-holding methodology for building the application, you would just give the AI a high-level instruction and allow it to literally just get at it, where with very little guidance in that sense. And I think it's been very, very interesting. I think the other thing I have seen over the last few weeks is how that is exploding aggressively on Twitter and seeing what people have built. People are using it now to build very fascinating and interesting games. So I was like, okay, I have played around to a reasonable extent with Cursor ID. I think it is pretty amazing. And um, I guess I have some free time on my hand this Sunday, and I was like, okay, probably makes sense to take a run at it and see if we're to spend an hour um, and just playing our hands and seeing how well we could get, how much we can do within an hour. So this is a race with for over the next 1 hour to see if we're to take a very baseline idea, how quickly can we get it to, can we, what can we build within an hour leveraging AI? And it's probably going to even be a stack or technology that I don't normally even write or I don't build with on a day-to-day basis. And just seeing where that evolves or what that looks like in a matter of the next 1 hour, I guess. So yes. So again, I'll share my screen, but I think a couple of like interesting thoughts. Because I've seen a lot of people um, share about building games. I think I wanted to attempt building a game. A friend of mine actually built an interesting game that he shared with me a few days ago, and I was super blown away with how much he was able to achieve relatively quickly. Um, so I was thinking over the last few days as well. I was like, okay, Francis, let's build a game. What would be the idea of the game I would like to build? Um, so this will be me trying to build the micro project, a fun side game. That hopefully we'll see how it goes. And yeah, I think that's where we're starting from. Interestingly, I've seen a few other recommendations of people saying it's really, really great to and to usually to leverage like Grok or Claude to refine your requirement documents, your implementation plan, and to take all of that into your IDE before you start building, because it gives your AI a lot of context on what to work with. So that's what we're going to be doing. I have actually gone ahead and done some of that initial baseline work, and I will show you what that looks like in a moment. Which is basically I have gone to Grok and say, hey, here's what I'm thinking of building. I'll show you what Grok has prepared and created, and I'll show you as well what um, I've used Claude to in terms of refining the thinking of how it should work, what it should be like. So I took what I got from Grok, passed that into Claude, and got Claude to refine it a lot more. So let me stop yapping and show you what that looks like actually. So I need to just a second. Um, Not usually want to share to stream. So this is also new for me. Okay, cool. Um, awesome. So I'm going to show you what this is actually. Maybe I'll show you. Let's start from. So I actually haven't started building the game, so just right in time. But because I actually heard that Grok is pretty good with building a game. Um, um, I went to Grok and I basically told it, hey, I want to be, or like Grok is really good with requirements or fine tuning what needs to be done. So what I did was I went to Grok and basically specified that I want to build a game. Here is what I want it to do. So I actually even asked it to prepare like a requirement document and implementation plan, ensuring that it is secure, scalable, yada yada yada. Um, and then a couple of other like criteria that I gave it, and it gave like a detailed plan of what needs to happen, which I thought was really good. There are a couple of like fine tuning it did in terms of like saying, hey, how do we? Because what I wanted to create was a game where people can will show you like a food or stuff, and you have to guess the country. So it's like guess the origin, like where is this from? So you could say the food is like say. So again, if you see like for this in this case would be sushi, Japan, um, or you could then guess like this is in France, but Eiffel Tower is not just in France, but it was built in 1989. You know, again, that's it. Nothing complex. So you see like an image, and then you guess where's the origin, and in that context, you can even then guess a bit more context about um, when it was built or any other information around it. And then over time, it gets a bit more difficult. And then there'll be like categories. So, like for food, celebrities, drink. Again, the mechanics is supposed to be relatively easy. And then you could have like a solo mode. So you can play by yourself, you could play with against somebody else or a group of friends, um, and stuff like that. And then you could earn like streaks. And again, as an entrepreneur, I was thinking, okay, hey, what would monetization look like? And again, I don't think I provided this. I think I did. I think I got this from ChatGPT. I'm not sure, but again, he also recommended how it could be monetized, which I thought was pretty dope, and all of that. And then he mentioned like security because I'm very key about security testing, and then like how that implementation plan would work, like what the technology stack should be, all of those good stuff. And I'm like, hey, rewrite this assuming that AI needs to build it. If you notice, there's a lot of like very defined alignment around what the AI should do. And again, I like this because it's really good. It can literally just take this from a YOLO mode. If we actually go into when we open up Cursor, you'll see how you can actually do that. We probably will try doing it purely on YOLO mode. Let's see. Um, and then it gave me a detailed overview. But because I also have heard that Claude's new model is pretty nice in that sense. What I did was take this final feedback here. I actually didn't even get into. So you see, I even asked it to generate like the prompts that I would use to get everything done. So I could have literally taken from if I wanted to actually go from Grok, taking the prompts which will guide it in terms of like I would take the prompt, pam, and then it will run and just accept. I could literally approach it this way. So that's probably one way to go about it, which would be interesting to see, because you see the clear instruction integrate Stripe for this. Here's how it will work, and then we can test. So maybe that's actually one approach to go. Um, Happy for us to figure out which approach to take about it. But I took it and I also wanted to see how Claude would approach it. So I'll show you what Claude did a bit differently. So I took um, that very high level requirement again. If you notice, it's the same context. The only difference here is like I actually wanted it to start from a product manager's perspective and think through what are we building, how do we need to build it, and the first thing it has done. Again, I did this like a few minutes ago. Was basically create like what's the problem, what's the opportunity, and some very like high level thinking around. Hey, let's focus on a solo player mode first for multiplayer, which I think is like a good way to think about it or how to approach it, monetization, all of that in this. And the good thing is that this is available as docs. So the great thing is I'm able to save all of this as documents and make available to my AI so that the AI model can understand all of the vision. I think I already downloaded this. Again, I'll just check. So you see, I already have a document called Origin Quest. So I've started saving most of those documents there. So game strategy, I'll just put this there as well. I don't think I saved it already there, so that's good. And then he asked a couple of questions around, hey, how large should the initial library be? Should we prioritize? Should we have more categories or should we have more items? I wanted us to have a small set of categories first, like five, and then just have a huge amount of content. So at least there's a lot more engagement. From there, we can figure out if the game works really well, maybe expand it a little bit more. And then for content, also, I don't want to do a lot of work. My daily life is very intense. My business already is already pretty intense as it is. So I wanted to say, hey, can you uh, crawl public data to actually build the content base and show me that on the admin side of the system based on your how you will rate the level of accuracy of that data you have, right? And that way I can use that to then decide, okay, you know what, approve and which the content will then become available on the game or not. So that way the system can consistently evolve in my head, you know. So that's something I did, which I think was pretty cool. Actually, it actually has a detailed version. So should be what I am downloading, not the first version. So I'm actually going to download this and overwrite this. Right. Yes. Replace. Okay. Cool. Um. So again, made some updates around there. So I actually wanted it to then let's do a bit more technical overview in terms of like what are some of like the technical considerations and recommendation again approaching based on what we want to achieve. How would you what would be his recommend the AI's recommendation for building this out? And he had like a couple of recommendation, all game logic in the browser. So this is assuming that the game is being built on the web. Again, some timeline planning and stuff. But I actually wanted, which I think was cool, but I also wanted it to be available on mobile. So I was like, hey, make those changes. And I think that was already done. So now the idea is that we're going to be building a cross-platform system that will work both on web and we can have a mobile app version that can also be available. And then he talked about like different challenge. How do we manage and serve this? And he talked about how he was going to think through it in terms of both for web and for mobile and performance issues. Like again, like all of that detailed thinking around how to approach these different issues, which I think was super fantastic. I think I already have this downloaded as well. Technical lead. So if you notice now, we haven't even started anything. It's just documentation, right? And I realized that I usually don't do this when I try to play with most of the AI, but this time I want to try it and do it differently. So we'll see how this works. Um, and so again, the other thing I wanted to go is go a bit more detailed, and then use that to then create like a detailed implementation plan. Um, Again, based off where we are coming from, and then it has kind of created like a detailed implementation plan of these are our sprints. These are the key things we want to achieve with every step of the way. A lot of the feedback I've seen around the space is that the best thing you want to do is, I know if it seems like we're not already coding, you want to spend a lot of time actually getting the plan and the initial base done right, because if that is done really, really well, it will help that when you actually start the actual development that you are not going over the same set of things over and over again. So it might seem like we're doing a lot of, but yes, I think it's relatively great. And it didn't also take me that much time to get this going. So it talks about like, hey, here are the different phases of what we will try to achieve um, every step of the way, right? Which I think is really, really dope as well. According to this, we would have even like what the testing strategy will look like, what it needs to test. Because again, I wanted to ensure that we are testing properly and that the system is secure. Because I know that one of the big worries a lot of people talk about with using AI to build systems is security. And I think part of that is also usually not being very intentional to actually think about, okay, or in the planning around security. So part of all of this planning, if you notice, has been is almost assuming that human were building it. So I said, hey, I'm going to want to actually use AI to build out this game. So adjust that entire planning, thinking about it from the perspective of the AI is the one I'm going to be using to build it. And here is now like an updated plan that it is going to give the AI. Actually, I think this was also cool because it talked about like technology stack, project setup, how we should structure the project, how you should handle several things like the database, all of that. Again, if you're not technical, you don't even have to bother about. Um, I think this was also pretty dope. What I really liked as well was, let me scroll to the very bottom again, like how will they calculate, how will they, like what the test questions will look like, the test examples, how will you, for performance, like under 2 seconds if it's on 4G, under 5 seconds on 3G. Again, this is really, really very intentional stuff that I didn't even have to actually spend a lot of time scoping. And I think that's mind blowing. You know, like how do you handle error? Again, the beautiful thing about this is that you can read through. If you are technical, you could read through and say, hey, no, I don't want it this way. This is how I want it. And then if you then notice, they're now very specific milestones, you know. So again, just the same way we did on the other end, we could actually then, which is probably what we're going to do, we could actually just copy this entire place, copy here and say, hey, again, once I finish moving all of the documentation, what you probably see, what you end up seeing us do is saying, hey, we'll take this code base. I'm going to say, hey, Cursor, I want you to read through the entire documentation and ensure that you understand the goal and the scope of the project. Once you understand it, come back and just give me an overview. Once that is done, we will probably just copy here and just give it straight up and say, hey, take here and run, take here and run. And so we can go through each milestone and we'll test, right? So if you notice in this case now, again, pure YOLO mode where I'm not trying to even handhold the AI and we'll see how well it does, right? Um, and go from there. So yeah, that's like more of the plan really. I think he had a couple of questions. Um, let me see. So he has like development guidelines. He has a couple of, and he has like quite. He had a couple of questions for me, like what would be available, and then I provided some responses to that. Here, like okay, I want to have, and so he went ahead based on the hey. In this case, I'm not doing any UI. I'm not providing any mock-up, any design assets initially. I'm like, look, you are going to do that yourself. Um, so I'm like, hey, and because of I wanted to actually create that as well, he not only did that, he also created um sorry, let me download this. I'm not sure which of the versions I have. Implementation plan, just to be safe, because I'm seeing as an edit. So if you notice there's a content generation strategy, which would be hey, the content that we would have for the initial gameplay just to start off the system. So he created one based on the questions he asked me, like how would the AI have some of the base questions to start from? So if you notice like content from continents, and it has distributed that difficulty level, ensuring that the questions have a distribution between hard, mid-level, easy, hard, um, and then yeah, that distribution as well, and then batch processing. Fantastic. Again, you can review, you can fine tune, give it some feedback around how to play around it, but I thought this was really, really cool. Um, and then yeah, I could even do some of the development here, but what I actually want to do now is open up Cursor. So if you don't already have Cursor, I use Cursor. There are a couple of IDs. A lot of people even you can use VS Code. So I think it's cursor.com. There's a free version of it, but it usually has limits in terms of how much prompt you can do. Actually, I think on the fast prompt. But actually, I have a paid subscription to Cursor. So um, yeah. I would show you what it looks like. Again, it's just a simple black interface. There is a project I was playing around earlier with, but I would open a new project. So we'll start. We're starting from if you notice the project folder is desktop. Okay, so this is the one I created. The game, calling it Origin Quest. So just a second, let this come up. Um, okay. Okay, awesome. So currently in my folder, what you will find is there's no code at the moment. It's basically all of the stuff we have generated with Cursor. Content, design, strategy, implementation plan, all of that really, really interesting stuff. What is available in the folder. No actual code yet, right? So I think now, ideally, if you're using Cursor, again, you could use Tray. Tray is open source, it's free. So a lot of people, I haven't had this experience using Tray, but I actually have it on my system as well. So you could use Tray. There's Windsoft. There are a couple of other IDs. Like I said, you could use VS Code, which has. Let me just download Cursor because it seems like a couple of updates. So you could use Tray, you could use Cursor. So Tray is spelled Trae. So look for Tray IDE. Is another great one. I prefer Cursor. I've used Cursor. Um, I paid for a full year immediately, like a couple of months ago. Immediately I started seeing like how powerful it is. So I think it's about $20 a month. So Cursor is really, really interesting. I've played around with it to see what it can do, and I can definitely tell you that it has it, um, it packs a punch really from development. And again, and we'll see it in a few minutes. Just quickly doing some updates to my Cursor at the moment. Other people use VS Code as well. I know VS Code now has its Copilot, so now we have our updates done. I'm just going to pull this a little bit. I like to have as much real estate. Okay, cool. And then I'll toggle. So this is my your chat window. Now, usually, if you haven't used Cursor before, there are a couple of really interesting stuff I think you want to do with Cursor. Again, in terms of like your settings, there are a couple of like useful resources on the web around how to set up your Cursor environment. One thing you have to manually do is to resync your code base, because what usually would happen is you get to a point where your AI is generating a lot of new code, but the system, the environment is not fully aware of all of those code. And as you are prompting it to do more new action, instead of it to update the existing code base, it starts overwriting, and then that becomes really, really terrible. So once in a while, resync if that's available. That's really, really good. The other thing is documentation. If you are building for a specific environment, let's say I was building for web, if you are very technical, I'm building for web, or you're trying to integrate certain APIs, add all of those documentation here. It makes the development environment a lot more intuitive because it has resources to reference and to learn from. And I think that's really, really powerful. So if you want to build, let's say in Python, Java, or any specific language, any specific framework, providing it those documentation and those reference are found to be really, really helpful because it lets the AI model have a lot more context. And then there's obviously models, like what models do you want to use? Obviously, you could see DeepSeek, you could see a lot of them here. So choose which ones you want to play with. Claude, obviously, for a lot of code development effort, Claude blows most of them out of the water at the moment, at least from all of the reviews and experience I've seen. 3.7 Sonnet is obviously the latest one. So there's a lot of the time, a lot of people are playing a lot of requests. So sometimes I see that they are getting overwhelmed recently. So what a couple of people have recommended is that if that is happening, switch to 3.5. It's as good, but 3.7 is way, way, way better. So that's what I would say on the rule side. If you have your own keys, you can provide that. It just ensures that it's, but then it will mean that it is then consuming your keys, you know. And then there are rules for AI. I think this is also something I found to be really, really useful. Um, Here is more a case of giving it like high level rule, which is like, hey, how thinking as generally like a senior product manager, a developer, there are a lot of platforms that offer these rules. There's one cursor.directory. If you just Google cursor rules, you'll find a lot of like rules you can find. So this I have defined as rule in general in terms of like how you should think about this entire coding approach, right? I want it to reflect in it by a lot of the things it's doing, but then you can then create project specific rule, right? So if you notice in the context of our project, there were a couple of very specific rule that we could save, right? Um, that we could save, right? And that way, so we could go in. Let's go back up here. Um, okay, cool. So this is content. Hold on, because I think he created a couple of rules. I need to figure out a way. Not very great with streaming live here, but yeah, um, with seeing if there are any questions. But if you look at the you scroll down a bit, um, so it has like quality control requirements, um, review process, documentation requirements, AI development guidelines. So this could actually be a lot of the stuff um, that you then move your um, into your like your role, into your project role itself. All right. So what I would actually do is I'm going to copy this. Um, then I'm going to add that into Claude. I'm just going to create um, project role. Okay. Okay. Awesome. So I have that. Um, Again, this is pretty new. Usually don't do it this way. So I figure out how that works. I'm going to just try and create all of them as micro rules in there. So let's go ahead and create a few more rules. Uh, Review rule. Hmm, Okay. What else? Documentation requirement. So these are tasks. So all of this is error handling. Okay, cool. Actually, can you merge all of the guidelines and program across the project? So instead of us having to create it in multiple ways, we can perfect. Okay, still going at it. Let's see. Okay, I think now I'm over complicating it. So we're just going to take this row once it's done, and we're just going to start counting and see what we create. We're already 30 minutes in, and I actually want to ensure that we can, over the next 30 minutes, get something that has a bit of, that is taking a bit of shape, I guess. Okay, this is very, very detailed. Okay, this is very interesting. I usually haven't approached most of the things that I have played around in terms of building wise in this sense. Right, this is incredible. Just seeing the amount of guidance in terms of the specificity. This is how this should be done. This is how this should be done. You know, this is. I am truly, truly amazed at the. Okay, this. Okay, it's still swinging at it. Now I feel like there should be some background music because oh my days. Okay, so this is ready. Okay, This is a whole lot more than I thought, but that's fantastic. I don't even mind. Um, Dump it right there. Again, pure YOLO mode. We're going to YOLO it all the way. Cool. And I would actually go to. Um, do we want to give it that much, or should we take it step by step? Okay. Let me allow it finish, and then we will try and see. My goal will be, let's see if we can knock out milestone one, milestone two, because by milestone two, the core mechanics of the game is done. So it means that the interface might not be that great. Again, we'll see what it comes up with, but at least we should have something playable. Um, because like milestone three is a lot of the okay, there's a lot of like user experience fine tuning that we are able to do in milestone three, and then by milestone four we will be doing final test and getting ready to go live. All right. So I'm going to see if we can one shot and get us to milestone two really quickly. There's a lot going on here. What's still here? Oh, it's creating a huge content dump for the game. Here's a sample batch of 20 content items for the food and cuisine category. Okay, awesome. So, okay, okay, awesome. So let's do it. I'm going to download this as well in there, and I'm going to go let it read. Okay, cool. So now we've looked at a lot of things. No more looking. Um, okay, let's start. I am going to switch this. So it's agent. I'm going to switch it back to 3.7 thinking agent. That's the one I want. Um, and I'm just going to say review content of folder and um, ensure you understand what needs to be built. The goal is to test on completing each milestone and updating the implementation plan with progress. And this is really, really key because why this is important is um, that way, if as you go through the development process, the your AI agent knows where you stopped and is able to pick up from how far you've gone and continue, as opposed to you having to provide that context every time. So what I've seen happen a lot of the time is, yes, you have a baseline implementation document, but you want it to be marking what has been completed, what's in progress. And so anytime you pick up, you can just go from there. So let's go. Actually, I should have asked it to uh, I should have probably asked it to ask me any clarifying questions. Um, so I'm just getting it to first of all read all of the documents in the folder before it does anything. Ideally, probably would have been best to create it in a sub folder and move all of this documentation into it before we start, just so that at least we are able to, when we're going live, we can still clean that up. But again, like I said, not overthinking it at the moment. Um, Okay, so he's looking at the current project folder to see what has been done. Again, we haven't done anything. Okay. Okay, so if you notice exactly what needs to be built, core implementation requirements, setup and architecture. If I check here, I'm almost sure. I think that should tally with exactly what it also expects it to do. So I just go down. I'm running against time, but if we go down, if we go down a little bit, project setup. So if you notice, the first thing is to create projects with React Native and CLI TypeScript. Okay. Aha. So perfect. Yes. So you see, I'm not even going to even tell it. I'm just going to say yes. Okay. Let's see. Let's go. Okay. So again, it's purely in YOLO in agentic mode, meaning that in this case, I don't even, well, in certain cases, you need to. So it just says there's a type Y to proceed. Um, Other than that, it should get everything done itself. Okay. And then you start seeing a couple of the files start showing up on this side. Okay, I think he has created it as a folder itself. Okay, so you see it's started generating files already. So there's a folder inside the folder. Um, that's fine. Um, and it is installing or setting up. I think this is the most interesting thing about this new era of this entire vibe coding phenomenon where you could people are literally just giving it command and doing other things with their day, whether it is going for walk, go and have coffee, and then they come back. AI has written this a sizable amount of code that they just review and accept. So project is ready. So it means the base expo is already set up. Um, okay, so it's already doing all of the dependencies that it will need for the project. Again, he's doing all of that work, checking there's conflict. Um, he's using Expo 52. Okay. Running against time. I have barely 10 minutes. We'll see. We'll see how much progress we're about to make at that time. Okay, so based on the implementation plan now, it's now going to start creating all of the necessary. Um, he's going to create a README file for the project. Um, all I have to do is just accept as he creates all of this resource. Um, yeah, and it's just going to go at it and keep generating all of the files. So again, all, all the more reason why I say it's pure YOLO mode, where it's like, hey, just let it rip, you just let it go. Um, and we will see. So let's see. I think I can see the README file created. So this is the README file. The cross-platform trivia game challenging players to guess the country of origin for various items across multiple categories, features, iOS, Android web, progressive difficulty levels, offline support, and the structure. Yeah, pretty interesting stuff. So I'm just going to accept. It's still creating, but I'm just going to accept all of the stuff it has created so far. I'm like, yeah. I'm not even going to context anything. Just go. Um, Again, the idea will be we want to get it to a phase where we can test. So let's see where we get, how far we get, and then we'll test progress and then go from there. Okay, interesting, interesting. Uh, I'm very curious to see what the first base will look like because I can already see that it's already import screens. This will be created later, like home screen, game screen, category screen, result screen. So it's already setting up all of the different screens that we need. Again, most of those screens haven't been created yet. He's already even creating like some of the content that we use. In this case, the placeholder home screen, I think is super interesting. So it's creating a category screen. So I set up a home screen. It's creating like a basic category screen. Um, 8 minutes. I think by the hour we should be able to have something that is almost ready to go. Again, it just a single prompt, technically two, um, and all of this is happening without me having to do any additional work. Um, Again, what I have also, in my opinion, at the moment is if you want to do more like this agent, full-on agent hands-off mode, probably makes sense for very well-defined, simple projects or application. I think it's also a perfect way to build MVPs where you can go from, oh, I have this idea in my head, or I'm talking to a potential customer and they have this use case again, depending on what the problem state is. But I can go from, oh, I'm talking about it, I'm thinking about it, and I can present something to the individual to say, hey, here's something, and see if it resonates. If it bites, then I can then go start investing a bit more in terms of like how I build that out a lot more long term. I haven't tried where there is like an existing code base, and yeah, probably you're doing that. Probably is a lot of risk. I obviously know people using it for like auto completion, where you're writing and it's auto completing some of the part of the work you're doing, and then you are reviewing, which I think is still makes a lot of sense in that use case. Um, I guess again, I think one of the biggest things I'm seeing with a lot of the AI code coding environment or tools that exist is you need to do a lot of the work in terms of kind of guiding it as much as possible. And then yeah, this usually happens where after like 25 commands, you need to click for it to continue. So again, mainly do that it will continue. So you see it has continued again. And that's usually all you have to do. Um, Obviously, again, depending on the quality, and I guess again goes back to all of the preparation, depending on the quality of the instruction that you give it at the very beginning, you might have. Okay, so I think we're about to run our app actually. Oh, interesting. Okay, cool. So let's pop this up in the terminal. Okay. Okay. Now we're popping up a couple of things. Oh, sorry. So if you, because we are trying to do something on mobile as well, we're still doing some development as well. You could use, because I'm trying to do something on mobile, but I'm already seeing that there's going to be an error. It will not work correctly until you install this version of the package. So I can see it's already updating the package. So let's do that. Um, but Expo, there's a Expo Go actually has it's actually like a mobile environment you can use to test out um, the applications that you're building. So um, I will just scan the QR code and see. I know it's still building it out, so this might not work fully yet. Um, but yeah, to see what we have. Showing bundling 97%. I think I should be able to see it here as well. So you see 99. If all goes well, it should go live and I should see the app on my phone. Okay, so I just have a blank screen at the moment. That's what it's showing. So at least I think let me close this. Okay, and let's just accept and say yes, because that part is already busy. Okay, so I'm going to scan this new QR code. Okay, and now we are bundling. Let's see. Um, so it says, let's see what it's talked about. What has been done? We have successfully set up the initial project structure, foundation. Here, we've created a React Native project. We set up basic project structure, configured dependency, implemented Redux store with slices, content user, created TypeScript interface, set up navigation structure with React, created a home screen with navigation to other screens. Aha. Okay. Okay. So again, what I would essentially do here is to um, I think we've completed everything here. So we're already at time, but I'm going to see if we can. I'm not sure all of this was implemented. So let's see. To continue according to the plan, we should focus on. Okay. Okay. Let's just even follow this if he's using the plan. Continue. Okay. That's where we are going to stop for today. But I'm going to just follow through the plan a little bit more and hopefully post a bit more progress next week Sunday to see how much has changed between now and then. And then we'll go from there. Okay. Cheers, guys.